Hey everyone, welcome back to Williamson Ridge Outdoors. Today we are actually here at the back wheel of the truck. I have an issue with my brake. I'm pretty sure it's just the pads have wore down and eat into the rotors. So what we're going to do today is actually change out the brakes and rotors. I was actually wanting to do it on the front and the rear, but the parts for the rear are the only thing that showed up today. And I want to get this done as quickly as possible because the rivets on the brake pads are actually into the rotors. I probably wouldn't have to change the rotors on this if it wasn't for that. I actually just didn't think that they would actually be bad yet, and they had actually wore through. I say that because the first time I changed brakes on this truck, it had 80,000 miles on it, and I changed the brakes on it and they weren't wore all the way down. I went ahead and had the rotors turned because they did have a little bit of shake to them whenever you'd hit the brakes. Now it's got 132,000 miles on it, and I really, I wasn't quite expecting the brakes to be wore out. So anyways, it kind of just caught me off guard. So we're going to jump in here today and change what we've got. I've been doing some videos and stuff on my 2011 F-150. I have one about changing the lug nuts, and I have one on the battery terminals. I'm actually going to do a 10-year review on this truck here pretty soon because I've owned this truck for a little bit over 10 years. So all the miles and everything that is from brand new till now, I know all the things that have gone on with it. So, it's not like that, I bought the truck used and half its life I've experienced some stuff or not. I've experienced it from 0 miles all the way to this 132,000 miles. And I want to share with you, the things that have happened and things that I feel could have been maybe a little bit better, and whether I feel that this is a reliable truck or whether it's something that I would purchase again, because a lot of people have doubts. This truck actually has the 3.5 liter EcoBoost in it, and a lot of people had their doubts about longevity and that kind of stuff with these engines. So I just kind of like to share that. So stay tuned for that because that will be coming up here pretty soon. I look forward to doing that and putting all that information together. But for now, let's go ahead and jump in here and get these brakes and rotors changed out on the rear of the truck. So I'm going to be using my Dewalt 18 volt. It was their XRP series. But since then, I've actually changed and put one of the adapters on there to where I can use my 20 volt max lithium ion batteries in here. I'll put a link in the description below for this adapter because this has really been a lifesaver for me. But it has made all my old 18 volt tools kind of current without having to buy all new tools. The lug nuts are 21 millimeter, and we're going to be using a 21 millimeter impact socket. So I've already broke these loose. And I hope, I've got a fan going over here beside me. I hope that thing's not too loud. There's only 2 bolts that hold the brake caliper on, and they're back here in the back right here. I've already got them loose. And they just take a 10 millimeter wrench. And actually, the second bolt is actually this weird looking thing right here, which I think might have something to do with the anti-lock brakes or something. I don't even know what this thing is, but I'd say that's some sort of a sensor or something. But you just use an open end 10 millimeter wrench on it. You break it loose, you can just turn it out, and it won't come all the way out right there because it won't clear the leaf spring. But once we take the brake caliper actually loose, then if you needed to, you could pull that the rest of the way out. To get the caliper to come loose, in most cases, you probably just pull that loose, but mine's a little bit stuck. They've been on here since 80,000 miles, and there's actually a groove wore in here, and there's a lip out here at the top side of the rotor, and I think that's not allowing that to really come loose. So in my case, though, I'm actually going to use just a flat screwdriver, and I'm just going to pry it from the bottom. And that will pop the caliper loose. I'm gonna go ahead and pull this bolt out of the way. It's best in these situations too to not let your caliper just hang there on the hose. So I'm gonna set it up here for now. And I'm gonna set it right on top of the leaf spring, but I'm not gonna twist the hose, the brake line that's connected to that. Try not to put that in a twist, so lay it up there in a free position. So our next step is just to take our rotor off. Now you've got some holes right here to thread a bolt into. in case these are kind of seized on. So you can thread a bolt into these holes and push that rotor loose. There's also the emergency brake assembly that's inside here, so we're going to have to watch out for that. I don't have any bolts right now to fit these, so I'm going to peck it with a hammer and see how that works out first. So it wasn't too bad getting that loose. It took a little bit of pounding on it. Probably took me about 5 minutes to get it loose. But like I say, you can put those bolts in there and actually push that rotor off there if you have bolts that'll fit those holes. Once it broke loose from the hub, the emergency brake pads actually were kind of hanging up a little bit. Where those emergency brake pads ride, over time we'll have like a little indentation in there where it does wear that a little bit. So as you're pulling that off, then you get to a section that hasn't got any wear at all, and it makes them a little bit tight coming off. So when you go to put the new rotor on, you do want to take that into consideration, because your emergency brake actually might be a little bit snug. Of course, the pads on it actually should be wore just a little bit, so we'll just kind of have to see how it ends up being. But you know, you may have to adjust that just a little bit or something to keep that from being too tight. So we ended up going with these Detroit axle slotted and drilled rotors. These I actually got off Amazon, and I figured why not go ahead and get the slotted and drilled and kind of upgrade the brakes and the rotors as I'm changing them. We tend to tow with our truck a whole lot, and also really don't have any intentions of getting rid of the truck. So I figured why not go ahead and put the nicer slotted and drilled rotors and be able to try to keep those temperatures down. Hopefully replace this with something that's going to last from now on for as long as we own the truck and not really have to replace rotors again. These rotors actually do come with a 10-year warranty also. That's kind of a little peace of mind that you're not going to have to worry about it for a long time. We also got these with the zinc coating on them. They shouldn't really have much problem rusting. So let's go ahead and get this thing put on here and see how it looks. So it actually slid right back on over the emergency brake pads without any problems. It's all the way back against the hub. All we've got to do now is change our brake pads. And the brake pads actually should be pretty easy. They should just pop out. Sometimes it helps to peck it with a screwdriver or something. So all I'm doing is just pecking it down to get those clips to release. So I'm going to pull the cap on the brake reservoir. And the only reason I'm doing that is so you've got to squeeze those calipers back together. And whenever you squeeze that in there, it pushes the brake fluid into that reservoir, and you don't want it blowing the cap off and all that kind of stuff. So it's best just take the cap loose, and then just remember whenever you're finished to put the cap back on. So in order to do this, I'm going to use one of my old brake pads. And I'm going to take a C-clamp, and I'm just going to clamp it from the back of the caliper onto that pad. Now, one thing, you don't really want to clamp this on anything important, and you don't want to clamp it extremely tight. If it's not moving in with just minimal pressure, then you may have something going on with your caliper. So we got our rear caliper on, and it was a matter of getting those little prongs, you know, squeezed back down to go inside the piston, and then it just snaps back into place. Your front caliper, you can see your little guides here, they're going to slide down and get into these holes, and then your spring here is actually going to hold the tension on it, hold it in place. And that one, you just squeeze it down until it locks into place. So we're also going to go ahead and replace these sliders, which also came in the kit. So we replaced the sliders, and now we'll go ahead and put the caliper back on. So we're going to put the top in first and hook these little tabs on the top side. Make sure you pull your pins back to be able to clear. Something you do want to do before you put your caliper back on is this long funny bolt that goes on the top side. You want to make sure that you've got it started first, because once you get this in there, you can't squeeze it in between your leaf spring and your caliper. So we're going to go ahead and put that in there, but don't push it all the way through to where you can't line up your hole. And then make sure your bottom pin clears. And then you can just hit it into place. And so you can see your tabs actually on the top and the bottom are seated against your sliders. So now we can just line it up and thread it in. And then we'll put our bolt in the bottom. So these things don't have to be super tight, but you do want to snug them up pretty good. If anybody knows what this thing is though, leave that in the comments below. It's not hooked up to anything, so I don't know. I think it might be some sort of an anti-vibration type thing or something for the brakes, because it does have like a rubber mount and movement and stuff to it, but there's no wires or anything hooked up to it. So I'm not sure what that thing is, but I just know that that's connected to the bolt that holds your caliper on. So now all we got left to do is just actually put our tire and wheel back on, and we'll be good to go on this side. I also wanted to say that I am in no means a professional. I'm not a mechanic. You know, I'm just an individual that decided to upgrade their brakes and do it themselves. I do a lot of this kind of work myself to kind of save on mechanic bills and stuff. And if you've got just a few tools and stuff, a job like this really is not very hard at all. So if you enjoyed today's video and you found it helpful, make sure to give it a big thumbs up. I'd really appreciate that. Also, while you're there, subscribe to the channel and follow along with us, and we'll see you on the next one.